With this very expansive and lucky strawberry full moon in the sign of Sagittarius happening in alignment with such complementary transits between Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus, we're seeing this uptick in energetic support around brainstorming, mental clarity, and looking at things from a broader perspective, with finally connecting the dots on things that we've been circling back to mentally for a while. And with Venus also having such an easy flowing transit with Neptune at the time of this lunation, there's this ease in the air when it comes to making connections, opening up to one another, and being reminded that we're not alone on our journeys. Hello friends, it's your girl Alina, back for another energy reading for this upcoming full moon and strawberry moon in the very open-minded fire sign of Sagittarius. In this video, we'll dive into all things Sagittarius full moons, transits surrounding it, and of course at the end I'll offer some custom full moon journal prompts so we can reflect and energetically align together. And before we dive in, I'd like to say a special thank you to the sponsor of this video, which is POW, home of Wonder Matcha. Now, I actually reached out to them to sponsor this video because I've been in love with their products. So as many of you know, I quit coffee last year because I was sick of the jitters and energy roller coasters that I was on with it. So when I found POW's Wonder Matcha this year, it completely changed the game in my relationship with caffeine. Now, what I love about POW is that they're not just a matcha company. They specifically combine sustainably sourced ceremonial grade matcha with brain supporting adaptogenic plants like lion's mane mushrooms and ashwagandha to aid in keeping our energy and focus sustained throughout the day. And what's awesome is that they're actually offering their Wonder Matcha starter pack, which includes a free frother for your first order when you click the link on the screen or in the video description. And so thank you again to POW for sponsoring this video. And with that said, let's dive in. So first up, let's talk about what exactly a strawberry moon is. Now that name is given to the last full moon of spring, when we see that the strawberries planted at the start of the season are now starting to ripen for the picking. Now from a seasonal perspective, here in the Northern Hemisphere, it's this reminder from nature that the seeds that we might have planted as recently as in mid-March at the start of spring can also already show results. Now these can be intentions that we might have set, actions that we might have started to take in alignment with our intentions as well. Next up, in terms of a full moon in general, astrologically, they're seen as this energetic high point midway through the lunar cycle. I like to call them a cosmic spotlight, so to speak, because after the full moon, we see that its energetic peak then wanes down to the end of the lunar cycle at the new moon. And this is why we see many people taking time to utilize this heightened energy. We see that the moon impacts our inner world. And just as we see that at a full moon, it tends to raise the tides, so too can it raise that aspect of our inner world, raising our emotional connection to ourselves and others, our intuitive abilities. And on one side of the coin, this can look like us being a lot more easily in touch with and in tune with ours and others' emotional states, allowing for us to connect with one another on a deeper level. And we'll see that there's a lot of transits happening around the time of this Sagittarius full moon that also aid in facilitating that. And on the other side of the coin, if we have any uncomfy feelings that we might be ruminating on, we can tend to see during full moons that they can also bubble to the surface. The full moon is also reflected seasonally as the summer season, where we see that all of these spring plants, all the seeds that we might have planted intention-wise or actions, whether they be intentional or not, can tend to come to fruition and be fully matured at the point of spring. And so we see that during a full moon that a lot of things have matured relatively, and we can look at things oftentimes with a little bit more clarity, reflecting on Our wins, what has matured over the last few weeks or since the start of the zodiac or astrological new year, since January. And we can also see what might be hindering our journey midway through it. This is why we see many people doing full moon rituals, where they set aside some time to reflect upon what is and isn't working and do some sort of releasing practice where you might write things that no longer serve us, that we're ready to energetically, spiritually release, and we might burn it or destroy it. This is why in the Oraline astrology planners that I've created and that some of you might have, all full moon pages are perforated, so you can easily tear out anything that you've written down as a part of a ritual. I'm kind of going on this whole tangent, going into detail with this stuff, and I'm sure that many of you are already very aware of the nature of a general full moon. But overall, during this lunar phase, our desires, emotions, and truths can more easily rise to the surface, allowing us to better understand our deeper needs. And this understanding is indispensable when it comes to manifesting what you truly want. And with this being a Sagittarius full moon, we'll see why this is a very auspicious time for manifesting. So next, diving deeper on the nature of a Sagittarius full moon, we're seeing themes of the fire sign coming forward about looking at things from a more bird's eye view, exploring the more philosophical perspective of our current state of life, and letting go of the smaller details. And with Sagittarius's ruling planet being Jupiter, the planet of growth and luck, Sagittarius full moons tend to be some of the luckiest lunations of the year, in my opinion, offering us opportunities to expand the mind and the heart. Now, looking at the duality that we see in all full moons, because they occur when the sun forms in opposition with the moon, we specifically see that this full moon occurs when the sun in Gemini, because we're in Gemini season, forms in opposition with the moon, which will be in Sagittarius, creating this cerebral duality, so to speak, between these two astral bodies. So first we see the Gemini sun, which encourages us to think more logically and practically with our immediate setting, really zooming into the finer details, having this opposition with the Sagittarius moon, which persuades us to lean into more intuitive and broader perspectives of what's happening to help us to look at things from a more bird's eye view. So overall, with this full moon, we're being called to strike a balance between aspects of our inner world, that being impacted by the moon, and our outer world. So when was the last time that you looked at your life from a broader perspective? For example, generationally, as a human on Earth, in terms of our broader life purposes and goals, or in terms of our beliefs and how we aren't living in alignment with them. When was the last time that you let go of smaller infractions and tried to think of things from a broader perspective? So an example that I love to give is when somebody cuts you off in traffic. In the immediate, the egoic, just assessing the information right then and there. It's like, you wronged me. But maybe from a more broader perspective, from that Sagittarius perspective, we think of the karmic aspect of things, of like, you know what they did is their karma, and they're going through something right now that has nothing to do with me, and how I react is my karma. And so overall, that is a part of the theme of this Sagittarius full moon, really allowing us to think from a broader perspective, to reflect on the pros and cons of being so sucked into our immediate routines, and really getting back in touch with our overall goals, our overall perspective, our overall beliefs, morals, and intentions that we'd like to live in alignment with. All right. Next up, we will dive into the top transits surrounding this lunation. So first up, a few days before the full moon, we see that Jupiter conjuncts the North Node on June 1st. So to start, what is the North Node? So the North Node refers to the North Node of the moon, which is seen as our North Star in astrology, so to speak, as it's understood to indicate the direction in life that we're called to be in. So for example, if your North Node is in Gemini, you might be called to grow within the qualities of Gemini over your lifetime. So when we see Jupiter, the planet of growth and luck, coming together in a very complementary conjunction with the North Node, this is the type of transit that can tend to usher in very formative experiences that can offer clarity around the direction that we should be going in life. Jupiter conjuncting the North Node also only happens every 12 years. So this is a relatively rare and very auspicious transit that can usher in encounters with people who can help us grow and who you can also help grow. This can also be a great time for travel, exploring, meeting new people, and seeking community, as this transit really offers easy flowing energy when it comes to finding any clarity that you might be seeking in terms of your life path or general direction. And it's really through our experiences with one another that we learn more deeply, not only about others, but about ourselves. Next up, if you've been looking for more mental clarity around something or trying to connect the dots with any given situation or a challenge, then this upcoming conjunction between Mercury, the planet of information exchange and learning, and Uranus, the planet of liberation and enlightenment, could be for you. Now, what we usually see with this type of transit is an uptick in our personal intuitive messages, mental clarity, and open-mindedness, which can really help to facilitate us finally connecting the dots and having breakthroughs, and also coming up with some pretty special ideas. And as a side note, with Mercury being in Taurus in alignment with Jupiter as well at the time of this lunation and the moon, we're going to be seeing a lot of supportive energy within the realms of the second house. So that involves material things, that involves our financial health, monetary relationships and aspects of our lives. That also involves what brings us pleasure, our sensory, more material aspects of life. And so when it comes to coming up with ideas, now can also be, just as a side note, if you specifically are looking for ideas or direction relative to your career path or your means of financial gain, whether that be at your job or entrepreneurial aspects or anything like that, when it comes to brainstorming, coming up with ideas, creative aspects in connection to that, I think that this can be a very auspicious and supportive time for that. Now, when this transit occurs, Mercury will also be aligning with Jupiter, Uranus, and the lunar nodes, all in the sign of Taurus, offering us just very easy flowing alignment when it comes to mental clarity around expansion, luck, and being in touch with our deepest desires. Also, because it will be in Taurus, which rules over the second house, this will be an incredibly supportive aspect for coming up with ideas, brainstorming, connecting the dots, really getting those creative, informational research juices flowing. So overall, this Mercury conjunct Uranus transit is very complementary with this full moon and Jupiter's transits as they come together to support the clearest of thinking when it comes to troubleshooting, coming up with ideas, being open-minded, and receiving our intuitive messages. And finally, at the time of this lunation, we will be seeing Venus trining Neptune. Now, this is a type of transit that offers heightened creativity, emotional connection, and compassion for others. And there's this easier time with our inner emotions and empathizing with others, allowing our creativity and imagination to flow a lot easier. Now, this is powerful, again, for brainstorming, getting our hands dirty with trying new things, and really creating intimate moments with loved ones that facilitate deeper connection. It's a lot easier to open up with others under a Venus trining Uranus transit. It can really facilitate very romantic times with a significant other if you're dating or in pre-existing relationships. If you've been wanting to schedule something, this can also be such a great time with pre-existing friends to schedule things to do with them to really take your relationship to another level of opening up with one another and feeling and creating safe spaces with one another. So overall, this can be a very powerful time for connecting with community and our loved ones, really scheduling time to allow for our creative juices to flow. And in combination with all of the mentally stimulating and lucky transits that we've already mentioned happening at the time of this full moon, really taking steps in the direction of connection and finally sitting down to plan, come up with ideas, and dream big are very supportive at this time. And by the way, before we continue on with this video, I want to say thank you again to our video sponsor, POW, who is offering their Wonder Matcha Starter Pack with a free frother included. Everything will be linked below. All right, next up, in terms of ways to align with this energy, when I tell you that this full moon is a powerful time for manifestation rituals, for letting go of what no longer serves you, because there's just so much supportive, lucky energy with Sagittarius, with the moon being in Sagittarius, there's no exaggeration there. So in terms of a ritual, reflecting on and seeing if there's anything that you feel called to release within the realms of Sagittarius can be very powerful. So as mentioned before, a full moon in this sign, this fiery sign, can really bring themes of expansion, growth, looking at things from broader perspectives as well. And as mentioned before as well, during this lunar phase, our desires, emotions, and truths can really more easily rise to the surface, allowing us to better understand our needs. And it will be this understanding that will be so impactful with manifesting what we truly want deep down. Now, since this full moon again is in Sagittarius, it really amplifies our power when it comes to attracting abundance and welcoming in new beginnings. So getting clear on what might be holding you back to do a full moon ritual to release those things can be very powerful. And really journaling and reflecting on what your bigger goals are in life, like maybe not immediately going to go do those things, but really allowing the illuminating cosmic spotlight of the full moon to help us with clearly reflecting on in what ways am I living in alignment with my principles, like what I truly believe in what ways am I not? And in what ways can I align with that in a practical sense that's also in alignment with my personality, with the practicality of things, with the accessibility of things? How can I bloom where I've been planted in alignment with my overall broader goals of life? This full moon in Sagittarius, again, with these themes of being able to more easily look at things from a broader perspective, it can also help us to let go of what doesn't matter. Not just things that are like, oh, this doesn't serve me and it's weighing me down, but also, man, there are some things that I've been so fixated on that really mean nothing in the grand scheme of things. I was actually recently reflecting on some lessons that I've learned over the years. As I mentioned, I turned 30 on May 22nd, and one of the lessons that I learned is that, oh my gosh, the way that my manifestations and my actions accelerated when I stopped worrying about what other people were doing on social media and letting it make me think that I'm not doing enough based off of other people's highlight reels, that it completely accelerated things for me. And that's another example of getting clear on what doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. What's an energy suck? What's sucking out my energy, my dopamine, that doesn't really matter. So overall, I've been on a little tangent there, really journaling under this full moon or at the time of it, 5 days leading up to it and following it, whatever time works for you, and reflecting on things like that. What really does matter in the grand scheme of things? What doesn't? And once we are clear on what really matters, doing some sort of manifestation spell to bring that into our lives, calling that energy in, asking if you pray, really getting clear on intentionally asking to be in alignment with that, to, if you're feeling fearful of some step in that direction, asking for the courage to take that step, really visualizing things in alignment with that. With so many of these influential planets in alignment with Jupiter, such a lucky planet and the ruling planet of Sagittarius in the sign of Taurus, there's so much supportive energy in that space. And next up, it's time for the collective perspective segment, where I share the collective perspective of the current transits relative to how we can get involved in volunteering, connect with our community through humanitarian efforts or volunteer opportunities. So a form of getting connected with our community and supporting it in alignment with these transits could be technology outreach programs. Now, this can look like you offering your skills and knowledge in technology to assist underserved communities or nonprofits in bridging the digital divide. So this combines the innovative and forward-thinking qualities that of Mercury conjunct Uranus and fostering connectivity and empowerment in our community. So some examples or ideas for places to get involved with that I found can include places like Code for America, TechSoup, and digital divide data. Now, some of these organizations focus more on providing tech support or refurbishment for outreach organizations as they digitize their business for better outreach, while others facilitate volunteers directly tutoring and teaching people. So, as always, I've left links in the description for all of these opportunities for you to learn more. Okay, next up, let's get into the Sagittarius Full Moon journal prompts. What I will do is I will read out the prompts here, and they will also be in the video description. And if you have your online astrology planner, don't forget to grab it and flip over to the dedicated Strawberry Full Moon and Sagittarius Full Moon writing prompt page. Wow, that was a mouthful. I don't know why I described it that way, but flip on over to the dedicated page to write these things out. In what ways are you living with your broader ideals in life? And in what ways are you not? What are you most grateful to have learned over the last few years? In what ways have you grown over the last few years? And in what ways would you like to grow moving forward? And finally, is there anything you're ready to release during this full moon? This can include people, places, beliefs, habits, or environments that are no longer in alignment with the path you'd like to take in life. All right, I hope that you enjoyed those writing prompts. And as always, if you did and you feel called to do so, I'd love for you to share what might have come up in reading those or when you were journaling. And now I'm going to go ahead and answer one or two of the writing prompts with you to kind of catch you up on life and spark some conversation. I also wanted to mention, like on the note of growth and, also the full moon of reflecting on the previous lunar cycle, I just really want to say thank you and celebrate the fact that we hit 200,000 subscribers on this channel. And I am so incredibly grateful to be able to call this a part of my job. And it's completely thanks to you, because you have engaged with my work, because you guys are just as geeked out and fascinated about living in alignment with nature and the cosmos and listening to our bodies and understanding that we have our own phases and cycles just like the rest of nature, because we are literally nature. Anyway, that's that on that, but I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video. Before I go, I want to say thank you to our video sponsor, POW, one more time, and remind you that they are offering an awesome deal where if you go to the link in the video description or on the screen now, you can get their starter pack of their Wonder Matcha with a free frother, like handheld frother, and I love it. I use it for so many things, so check that out. And with all of that said, I will leave you with my favorite quote, and that is, be gentle with yourself, because life is about the journey and not the destination. All right.